So congratulations on your milestone, and thanks again to Monzo. I'm usually out there, and so it's lovely to be warm in here. So yeah, Dom messaged me a while back and to say if I would talk at the meetup, and when she did, I knew something was happening on Thursday. So first of all, am I on holiday? Is it a family member's birthday? Oh no, it's Brexit. So I thought So I thought I'd start with a topic of State of the Union address, and it's kind of changed a little bit from there, but we'll see how it goes. So what do I do, or what I do? I'm the co-founder of Cloud Native Wales. Anyone from Wales in here tonight? Yeah, got a couple. Yes. I started my trek 3 days ago to get here. But I'm also an instructor with Learn Kubernetes. So we do public and private training on Kubernetes, but I should save that for another meetup, I guess. And well, I used to be a kitchen fitter. So last year I fitted my own kitchen, and I'm never going to do that again. And I suggest you pay someone else to do it. So so when I mentioned that I run Cloud Native Wales to Americans, first of all, they say, wow, that's amazing. That Wales? And it's, no, not the whale. We're not that, but we can do one better because we've got a dragon on our flag. So yeah, thank you. So we're known for a few things in Wales. Well, there's some people have come from there, but most people outside of Wales use us as a unit of measurement. So as it's Docker's birthday, I thought I'd do my own measurements. So this is the Welsh Coastal Path. If this morning I took account of all the public Docker Hub images available, I divided that by the distance, and if each container would be 1.5 meters in length, and then it'd go across the whole of Wales. When I asked the internet what was 1.5 meters, I kept getting told it was Danny DeVito. So, so yes, if containers were Danny DeVito, we could lay them all up and go around the coast of Wales. And there, my working is out to prove it, but I'm not going to leave them on there too long because I'm not too confident with that. So where can you find me? I'm here, so please come and speak to me tonight. If there's anything that I talk about that's of interest to you, come and talk. Otherwise, you can find me on Twitter. There's my Twitter handle, the bonus of having a double barrel surname, and also an email address that I have to spell out to everyone every time. So about you. So in here, who's new to Docker? Is anyone new to Docker? Okay, we got a couple of people new to Docker. That's sweet. Who uses it on a day-to-day basis but feel like they've got some bits missing? Okay, so we've got quite a few. And everyone else, are you all ninjas, masters, bosses? Like, okay, cool. And then the other question I have is, who runs Docker on Linux? Okay, I'm expecting a lot of interaction there. And anyone using it on Windows at the moment? It's a couple. So, right, why am I asking these questions? Well, I started off as a .NET developer. In university, we started with Java in our first year, but come the second year, we were brought onto C#. And then I connected with .NET. And then 10 years passes. So out of uni, I was still within Windows and .NET. I was full-time. I then went into a startup. Then I became a consultant. I traveled the world. And I ended up, careful with my words, contracting in South Wales, in the Southwest. And I had to do that because I had a young family. But for me, consulting is when you can bring ideas to the table and you can implement them. Contracting for me is when I have to sit at a desk all day long to get paid. And so I was absolutely fed up, and something had to change. So I'm going to give some tips today. So share is my first tip. I had to find something different, and I couldn't have done that without people sharing about how they were doing things. I'll allude into this talk other reasons why I was finding it difficult. But from today, like, when I start a project, I know that we got version control, but I keep a markdown and I just keep notes as to everything that I'm doing because I can't ever remember anything that I was thinking. But equally, that's how I find blog posts useful. So then I can quickly turn it into blog posts. But why containers? Again, I'm from a .NET background. And so this is, for me, I was introduced to containers about 3 or 4 years ago. So again, it was when I had my son, and I used to stay up till 4 a.m. So I was working on the West Coast in the States. And so I would wake up at 8 a.m. in the UK. And I optimistically thought I'd finish by 5. But what happened was I was staying up till 2 a.m. or so. I couldn't do that anymore because I had someone who was dependent on me. So I had to adapt the way that I was working. And so for me, that was automation. So that's why I was looking towards containers, which I don't know if anyone else has come through this route into looking to containers, but I was looking at a better way for me to be able to work. So why Docker? So I alluded to why .NET beat Java for me, and it was because of their documentation. Everything was thorough. When I started something, it would be complete. When I was looking at the examples and walkthroughs, they helped me out. And they actually, I remember some Java walkthroughs that I went through, and it just didn't work. And it wasn't just me before we say that. So I get into Docker, and again, I'm on Windows, and then the next thing that happens is that I'm in this thing called Linux. And yeah, I was lost. And I didn't know what to do next. I felt like this was the right direction to go. But I didn't know what to do. Now, this is something that it took me over 10 years to figure out because I completely lost it. I forgot why I got started with computers. I didn't get started with computers because I wanted to write in a specific language or on a specific stack. It wasn't for money and it wasn't for recognition. I just enjoyed solving problems. So the solution I looked towards, and I found this book called Docker on Windows. And the author is here tonight. Yeah, really good book. And what it helped me do, it was in my safe space of Windows at the time, and then it showed me how to use Docker. And the second edition is out now, and yeah, it was great. And it wasn't just that, it introduced me to new patterns. So anyone used the strangler pattern in here before? Anyone? Okay, cool. So in the book, the concept of using this is to migrate a monolith into a microservice. So initially, if this was by Martin Fowler in 2004, I saw the first instance of it. What would happen is a strangler fig leaf would land on a tree, and then it would start to grow, and roots would grow down the canopy. When the roots get to the ground, then it starts to grow to this point where it can manage and look after itself. It no longer requires a tree to keep it standing up. So then eventually, the host tree becomes obsolete. It dies. So we can do that with our monoliths, in that we don't actually have to write code within our monoliths, because if you've ever had to change code in a monolith before, the first thing that happens is everything falls over. So I got really excited because this solved a lot of problems for people I was working for. So we can automate this. We can make things better. So I ran skipping and everything into the office, really excited, and then no. No one wanted this. So this was back in 2017. Again, I'm working on Windows. The people that I was working for, nope, they didn't want Docker. They didn't want it whatsoever. They didn't want any change. And so I reached out to some other companies that I worked for, and equally, no one wanted it. And so here's my third tip, is to embrace change. Now, I get it. Change is difficult. Change isn't common. We're used to the sun rising and the sun setting. So if I say to you, we need to change something, then it's not a natural thing to feel comfortable in for most people. So for them, they didn't understand what containerization was. But equally, for me, I was more frustrated because they didn't want to learn it. To which I realized that everyone's different. The companies that I worked for had different ideas, and that's fine. So it took me quite a while to understand that just because I don't enjoy working with a company doesn't mean that there's a good or a bad party. It's just that we're not meant to be together. Other people might work well in that environment, but I didn't. So on that then, I realized that if I can't get them to change, then I have to change. So that's when I started to move away from Windows. And then I started to work with Linux containers. Thank you. I think that's the first time I've ever been applauded in a talk, so which says a lot about my talks, probably. So pros. Pros for me were Docker Run. Again, it was when I was starting out, looking at documentation online, instead of having to install all these libraries, which I don't understand whatsoever, all these versions, Python sprung to mind when I was trying to understand that for the first time. No, just with Docker Run, it starts, and I can get running straight away. And then also with Docker Build then, so it's cheap. I can build whatever I want, and I can push it straight away. It's great. I can start reading Docker files. I can see how people are doing this, and that ultimately leads me to learning from people who know what they're doing. It's great. This is a great thing, but there are cons. I'm doing top-down learning. So I'm presuming most people, when you're working with Linux, you started off on a Linux machine and you went to containers then. Now, I started off with containers and I went to a Linux. Like, so I was amazed at some of the things that I didn't actually know. So saying that, there was so many unknown painful points for me. I didn't know if it was Docker, I didn't know if it was Linux, but ultimately it was more or less me. So which meant that I had so many more fails than most. So yeah, here's my next tip: prepare to fail. I usually add a slide at the start of my talk about mental health. I suffer from, well, I've suffered in the past from depression. It might happen again. I'm my own biggest critic, and it's self-loathing and all that stuff. But I've learned how to manage it. So if that resonates with you, then I suggest you go and speak to a professional. I'm here to listen, but I'm not a professional. But I went to see my doctor, and that really helped out. And there's also other people that you can speak to about it who are professionals. But so once I learned to manage it, then more often than not, I felt like this, but with my failure. So this is from Jackass and that's Bamajera. Now, the thing I would say is that I already know that this big hand is coming, and I'm just walking straight into it anyway. But I'd also like to say that, as you can see, he's still looking at where he wants to go. And then that's what I'm like. So one way that I manage this with this constant failure is by having a special playlist. So first time I'm admitting this. So it's usually a lot of 80s music, but there's one song which actually comes from a film as well. So it's a cover by Karanova of Yeah Yeah Yeahs of If You're Gonna Be Dumb, You Better Be Tough. Now, I'm not suggesting that you're dumb for failing. I'm suggesting that you just need to be tough. The next line is, when you get knocked down, you got to get back up. And so that's what I've had to get used to. So I'm a developer, though. So I'm looking at other people's code. I'm getting other people's code up and running. But what would I like to have known from day one? And from my 10 years past, I was told by the business that I had to have 100% uptime. Now, at this moment, I was the head of tech. From quite young on in my career, I've been the head and deciding which direction we go. And this was my responsibility. So how did I fix this? I had a laptop with me wherever I went, and I had 2 mobile phones I could pair onto on 2 different network providers, which wasn't sustainable. And as I've alluded to with my mental health issues, when I have burnouts, it usually leads to depression, which is a no-win game. So my next tip is, whenever you spin something up, just tear it down straight away. Whether it be your applications, whether it be cloud hosting, just be confident in that as soon as you make something, you can break something. And it's on your own terms that you break something. It's not on someone else's. With Docker as well, you usually see lots of containers on ships and ships falling apart and such. But I'd like to propose a new version of this for GIFs. So for me, it's Mr. Meeseeks from Rick and Morty. So when I saw this for the first time, I've just thought, well, this is what a container is for me. You press a button, it spins up instantly, it asks for a job to do, and then it gracefully dies. So that's how I should write my containers. But saying that, we've discussed about orchestrators such as Kubernetes and Swarm. So if that's the case, then isn't this what that is? Which looks like organized chaos. But so what's the point that I'm trying to make here? I've spoken about my past. I've mentioned Windows a fair bit as well. But there was some news this week. So Kubernetes now supports Windows. Now, yeah. Thank you. Lots of whoops. So from where I'm from and from my history, I can assume that there's going to be some people who are deciding that Kubernetes is a way that they should go now with their data centers and whatnot. It's kind of that buzzword that some people are going to enjoy. It's going to solve problems, but equally the people on the front line, us, if those Windows devs like me, they don't know how to manage with containers, then, well, orchestrators, that's a level up. So now I've made a meme with my son yesterday, because that's what you do when you stay at home with your son. So this is kind of how I felt when I started with Docker. I had no clue where to get started. I had years of knowledge in other tools, which was my safe place. And how could I migrate my knowledge across? I also saw this. I think this came from Azure, saying that it's like cats and dogs under the same roof now in terms of Windows nodes and Linux nodes playing together. Now, I've never seen cats and dogs get along that well. Definitely my dog does not enjoy cats, but yeah, I think we need to be optimistic about this. So, a lot of people put a lot of work and effort into this, and will there be new things from Windows that we can get? So these are the experiences that I had when we were trying to get Docker up and running. So because it's just essentially a Docker file, we thought we would go rogue within our organization. Oh, this is being filmed. And because we could just create a Docker file and we can manage it from there. So the onboarding issues that we had 2 years ago were that we had Windows 8 installed on as our workstations, and the server was 2012. Now, to use Windows 8, you require Docker Toolbox, because that's running a VM on VirtualBox, if I'm right in thinking. But if you've got Windows 10, then it's using the hypervisor. And then Windows Server 2016 is container ready with a hypervisor, and I think Windows Server 2019 is Kubernetes ready. Saying all this, Elton's nodding, that's good, thank you. But this is confusion under the hood. This is when you're coming into something brand new, like I'm only just about understanding it now. So it sounds tough, and it is going to be tough for these people, but that's also why I think we got into this industry at the beginning. That's why we're here tonight. We're here to solve problems. So back to that point, share. So if you are going down this route, then why don't you share it? Be proud of it. Share your problems. Share your mistakes. Make sure you share the solution, though. That's the most important thing. If you're on Stack Overflow, don't say thanks, it's working now. Please give a complete answer as to why it's working. The amount of lost time. But it's be confident in this. It's just, if you're helping someone out, it's amazing. So, leaders. In my 10 years, I did not have a leader. I alluded to that after 3 months. I can explain why this happened in the pub, but again, I cannot say that when it's filmed. But I was promoted from swapping keyboard and mice to managing a whole IT infrastructure just out of uni. And it was my first promotion, and then I had no one lead me from that point. I was always working with people in business. I wasn't working with people in tech. So instead of me talk about that tonight, does everyone know Jessie Frizzell? If you don't, just amazing in what she does. But she did this beautiful post about define a distinguished engineer, which just fills that up. So I'd look towards that, because the impact that you can make on other people within your own team is phenomenal. And that's what I wished I had in my 10 years. So I had some direction. I knew where to go. But instead of me giving you that whole sob story, then actually I've got leaders now. So I've got Simon here. So we did our first LAN parties back at home, but then that was before my 10 years. After my 10 years, I got people like Ivan, who's speaking tonight. I got Elton here. I think I got like Matt here, Ben. Dom inspires us for meetups. I get to speak to these people. They help me fix these problems. It gives me confidence that I can do things. So I solved that problem for me. And that's why we created Cloud Native Wales, because I was lucky enough to come down to London to meet all of you. And I understand that there's some people who can't commit to that, whether it be time, money, or anything else. So we took the solution home. We created a platform for people to speak, and then we shared our stories afterwards at the pub. But then I wasn't necessarily ready for the amount of amazing leaders that we already have. So we've got Anushka, who's the head of engineering for a financial firm in Cardiff, and she's a global keynote speaker. We got a senior network engineer from Netflix who lives in a farm in Pembrokeshire. We got one of the Jameses from Jenkins X. There's this chap called Dan who gave an amazing talk on blue-green deployments, and he's colorblind. So that was such an amazing talk. None of the colors matched. But at our most recent meetup last week, or 2 weeks ago now, I found out that there's someone working on a human genome project on the top of a hill in Brecon. So we got these people around us. It's just bringing them together. And I'm trying to bring us together, and we're all different again. These people work on different platforms, they're working with different languages, they're working with different frameworks, but there's one thing linking us all, and it's containers. Containers are bringing us together. And it's back to that point about Windows on Kubernetes. Orchestration is point 3 in in the trail map. If you haven't seen this trail map, I suggest you have a look at it. You can get on the landscape.cncf.io. It's a really good tool to help people understand what cloud native is, even if they're not working in tech. But step one is containerization. So that's why Docker is still very much so important to me. Running the courses with Learn Kubernetes, we're still finding people who need some help with containerization, and that's cool. It's important that people are trying to learn, but it's something that we need to work on together. So where are we going? Are we going to be running containers side by side in production? So are we going to have Windows and Linux play nicely together? Well, technically yes, but is this really going to happen? So I think it will. I think we're going to see some changes. Talking about the strangler pattern, I can see solutions into how we can do things. Whether it's the case that everyone says that Linux is the best thing and then it's just a migration tool across away from Windows, so that's one thing. But then equally, as I've met with everyone within a Linux community, there's so many things that are available as soon as you get across that void. So on changes again, something was due to happen tomorrow. Ironically, that date had changed, I think. Again, I don't know, it might be happening, it might not. If it's BBC News alert, then yeah. But equally, I'm now seeing history repeating itself. So back to my history, when I was in 2008, I was working for a company which had 150 people, and within 3 months, we went down to 6. So I still have the fears of recessions and such. And I'm seeing some companies starting to leave. And I'm seeing some people get made redundant now. But I'm not going to finish my talk there, because I think the solution to that is community. So this is how I sleep at night now, because I feel like I have a community around me of people who can help continue to inspire me. When I have a problem, they can help me fix it, and how we can move forward together. So on that, I've just got a couple of final notes on just ways to learn. So already, does anyone know Ben Hall? So Ben Hall runs Site Catacoda, so already he's on it with his, he's already set up some Windows stuff on there. So I suggest you go on there, onto Catacoda. It's a great learning tool. I'd have to recommend Elton's book. If you're new to Docker and you're trying to do it on Windows, it's great. Equally, if you're great with Docker but trying to figure it out on Windows, it's just as great. And finally, meetups. And it doesn't necessarily mean like meetups this evening. If it's just even having a WhatsApp group with your friends who work in the industry, just some way of connecting with people and just talking to each other, because I think that's the most important thing. And equally, if you ever do want to come to Wales, I'm part of Visit Wales, apparently. So the platform is always yours to talk on. It'd be lovely to get you across. But saying all that, I think I'm done. So thank you for your time. If there's any questions, great. Otherwise, I'll see you in the pub.